Just like to extend a very warm Northeast Truth Seekers welcome to Tony Toppin here, our friend. I think this is your third time.
It will be, mate, won't it?
Yeah. So, who's going to give us a very interesting talk on the UFO subject. So, without further ado, I'm just going to get out the way and let him get on with it. So, Tony Toppin.
Well. Thank you for that. You can hear me all right?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Wonderful, right. Okay, well, I think the situation is, as you can see here, I'm going to take you on a journey, because I am, we'll call me a contactee, you could call me a UFO researcher, which I am. I've done various media work for various broadcasters, but I'm what would be called an exceptional human experiencer. I'm a man who's had paranormal experiences at an extreme level. Even sat here now, something could happen. I'll hear something, or something will go on around me. I don't actually profess to be psychic, although I am. I'm acutely wired into the grid and I know what goes on. And this is a story about how in modern times you have contact with UFOs, and this is what happens as compared to the current controlled narrative that we see in the media. At the moment in the US press, we have something called AATIP, the Advanced Aviation Threat Information Program, and at the moment those guys are currently, well, it's laughable what I'm witnessing, because I'm a contactee. Contactees were around in 1960, but in the early days, when I didn't know what was going on, that's me there with the microphone, in 2008, I'm trying to piece together what is going on around me, because it's quite shocking. And I stood there, I've not got a PowerPoint, I'm reading from notes, I'm looking down, I'm sounding very nervous. As compared to now, where we see the front cover of my book, that's currently being written, it's not out yet, but I'll let you know. And on the front cover of that, taking pride in place, is Isa, and Isa is a Nordic alien. And I won't make any apology for that, me and her have a rapport with each other, shall we say. And on the cover also there is a triangle craft, which is artificially intelligent, has its own mind, and at some point in the proceedings I need to turn the cameras off to discuss that with you, because there are some security issues around discussing that kind of thing, and I'll go into that but not on camera, so that you have an understanding when you walk away from here of what you're not being told. Also, and I feel I'm among friends here, and you make your own choice, I get it, I know. When I tell you this story, I have not got the intellectual capacity to make this up. I'm not clever enough. I'm reporting like a journalist, I'm reporting what's going on, but more importantly with contactees, there are human rights abuses with contact experiencers who have peaceful contact with extraterrestrials. It's effing disgraceful what is going on behind the scenes in terms of the military, especially the US military, under unacknowledged special access projects, and they know it, and the Navy as well, the US Navy. There's something they're not disclosing that I'm going to disclose to you that they're keeping quiet about as well, and it makes for an insane, mad world to be in, basically. And so, you know, that's me in the early days. And so my journey begins. It's been, frankly, just absolutely hair-raising. And I managed to piece together what was going on with me from 2008 until now. I'm like an asset. I'm like a man who's involved in an operation that I didn't quite understand. If we look, for example, in the New York Times at the moment, they come out with glowing auras and black money, the Pentagon's mysterious UFO program, Washington. In a $600 billion annual Defense Department budget, $22 million was spent on the Advanced Threat Identification Program. This is a twofold threat, they say, the current threat and the future threat. They forget to actually tell you that it's actually a three triad security threat, one of which is biblical. The nature of this UFO threat goes, the threat goes threat alien, threat biblical, threat nature. And these three threats intertwine with each other. But the comical irony about the UFO threat, the threat, that you'll hear these guys from the To the Stars Academy sat in front of, I mean, one guy, Hal Puthoff, an amazing man, do recommend you look at his research. He's going on about the Nimitz carrier UFO incident. And then he puts this little caveat in, we don't know what they are. And then somebody will go, we're sure there's a boring explanation, and they do know what they are. And I'll go into all that as to what this threat is all about, because by comical irony, it's the UFOs in the skies above that point to a threat from other UFOs. So you've got now two distinct factions in the skies above us, but they're not going to tell you that, and it's my job to tell you what is going on. The other thing as well I'd just like to comment on, just going back to when I began with all this, is I do and have had occasional online abuse. I'm not fazed by it. I'm one tough bastard. I'm not fazed by all that. But what I will say is, we get the abuse of rumours I'm a fantasist and I'm a pathological liar. You must understand that I am lucky to be alive. I'm 50 on Wednesday. I don't know how much time I've got with all this, I'll be frank with you. I may go to sleep one night and not wake up at all. It's been hair-raising. I don't wish to shock you. I just wish to show you what you're not being told. So if you see any online abuse about me being a liar, me being this, me being that, come and have a word with me if you wish. And if you also wish, which I'm sure you will because I've been friends with this organisation for a while, I hope you'll just say a bit about what you think, hopefully in my defence. Nobody fights my battles, but I think that will be helpful. Do you get all that so far?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so let's move on. So the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Programme running in the mainstream press at the moment tells us of a twofold nature of threat. It hasn't told you of the biblical threat, which is demonic. It hasn't told you of the alien threat, which is pointed out by comical irony. The aliens themselves, we'll come to that later on. We've also got the secret bit, so the Advanced Aviation Threat Information Programme. Has anybody heard of that, by the way? If I said that to you, Advanced Aviation Threat Information Programme, it's all across CNN and all across the US media. Is anybody aware of it? Tom DeLonge, To the Stars Academy, Luis Elizondo, nobody knows of those names?
I know.
Tom DeLonge. They chose Tom DeLonge. The spooks actually chose Tom DeLonge, and the intelligence apparatus that were dealing with all this chose Tom DeLonge to navigate into the public domain the information they wanted. There is a demonic threat element to this, and actually, in fairness to the Stars Academy, they've recently come out with that in public, which is very brave of them. Very brave, I've got to say. But what happens is that with AATIP there are 38 project names. One of which, there was Project Icarus, Project this, Project that, all about venturing into hyperspace. Sorry, not into hyperspace, into space. But the final one, if you can see that, is Space Communication Implications of Quantum Entanglement and Non-Locality, which is classified. The reason why it's classified is because that opens the doorway into contact with extraterrestrials and operations with UFOs that they would like to keep quiet. And what you're going to hear tonight is my witness testimony of a man who's involved in the foundations of all that, which we could describe as a highly secretive contact network with UFOs that reflects a threat and reflects like an alien Cold War. So I'm going to show you what I lived through so that you may be more informed when you go out of this door. My first vision was at age 2, and it was symbolic actually. It was Lord Ganesh. It was like a Ganesha. It was an Indian vision, a Hindu type vision. It was actually the ETs at age 2. They came in. This is an excellent drawing by Jason Gleaves of what happened. I'm very lucky to have people do my artwork for me. I'm very privileged. And he did the artwork, and that's precisely what happened. And there's my dad. And he actually, although he's looking, he can't actually see what's going on. And that's me trying to point to him. These elephants, they were kind of like thundering across the room, because it's symbolic of the Indian Hindu god. And they were thundering across the room straight into the wall. I'm a little boy, didn't understand what was going on, bit my lip, blood everywhere. Dad's trying to calm me down. But the important thing to note within the symbolism of Lord Ganesh, the important things to note is he has small eyes to observe, a small mouth because he listens more than he talks. But importantly, the big ears. An elephant has big ears, and that is so symbolically important because that means hearing in the hyperspatial realms. That's what it means. And some of us have that ability, and it is a curse. It's not a peaceful path. No way is it a peaceful path that we're on, but it's one's destiny, and that's what we must do to fulfill it. So I've come a long way since, let's say, the contactees of 1960, We had George Adamski, von Tassel, a few others, all monitored by the FBI because they thought they were raving communists. That's typical of the triangle that came over my house. It has its own part to play in my narrative. That triangle has a mind of its own, but we'll get into that later. I've had over 100 incidents with UFOs. I've had incidences with jets and a Hercules plane. I've had 2 helicopter incidents. 1 helicopter incident, the UFO purposely buzzed it, purposely came near it. There's a reason behind that. I've also had overt and covert surveillance, and I've had unacknowledged special access project harassment that involves human rights abuses of contactees. And we've had CE5 in various groups. And let me tell you as well, my learned friends here, when I publish my book, and actually I'm publishing the book, and how can I put it, I'm not bothered sitting here plugging the book, but this will be interesting. When I publish my book, the level of ack fire that will come my way in debunking it will mean I am right on the money as to what is going on. I'm bang on with it. And the USAP elements, unacknowledged special access projects, is very important because some contactees, including me, have been harassed from that element. It's disgraceful, it's undemocratic, and I wouldn't trust it as far as I could throw it. Being a contactee then isn't easy, and here's some interesting, there's various, now I've not got my notes with me, but one of them is von Tassel, Adamski, a few others. That's the guy in Peru who has had a contact experience. That one there is Alec Newald, which I'll come to later. Alec Newald had a contact with extraterrestrials in New Zealand, and they were very accurate in all that they were saying. The last 2 are actually the Friends incident in Italy, where UFOs turned up on the doorstep on the Adriatic coast, as they do. And what we've got here is this guy, that's a very famous Polaroid image, that one there, of a spiritual being, an ET, a human-looking ET, projecting its biophysical body into our dimension, just extending it. That's the actual one of the aliens taken from the Adriatic coast. It is rumoured that he's called a W57, and it is rumoured that they did measurements on him. I've seen the diagrams, they estimated his height to be 7 foot. The Italian government kept this quiet, but I recommend the book. It's called The Friends Incident, I think it's called, and I do recommend you have a read. So all these people have had contact experiences with UFOs, but me, I have to have the royal treatment if I get contact with UFOs. It's similar to what happens when the man walking down the street is contacted by something that he doesn't understand. And my first incident began in Praed Street, Paddington. This is me walking down the street in Paddington. Actually, the first UFO incident began about age 10. Second UFO incident began in 1992 over my house when I was coming back from rehearsal. And that's typical, just a typical mock-up that I've done of what it looked like to me. The UFO comes in over Parade Street. I think it's going to crash into those big block of flats. I'm running to a fire engine to tell them that that's going to happen, and the thing vanished. And the saga behind me and that UFO is a very, very interesting one. It's led me many years. They started following me. It's been quite hair-raising at times. It really has. There were some other UFO studies that were done. I do recommend you have a look at Project Magnet. That's interesting. And Operation Preto, or Operation Plate, actually. Operation Saucer, which is the Brazilian UFO one, which is also very interesting. We can also add GPAN, the Special Study UFO Group in France, and they've done in-depth studies. In fact, the French government are actually very, very involved in the UFO situation, more so than you would think, as is India. Everybody thinks America, but actually France and India are quite on the ball with all this. They know. They do know. Institute 22, which was a Russian research bureau, and if you've got a pen on you, or newcosmology.com is the Russian website. And on that, when you look at the Russian remote viewing, psychic spying website, there's not a lot of information on it, but by a miracle, I found a load of information buried about Russian psychic warfare operations that are not published in the West, including how the Nazis left Germany, which is, I've not seen that on any internet site in the West, and that's worth a look. I've just got to go through the files on that one. SMERSH, Deaf to Spies. The agents of SMERSH were handed handbooks because when they were patrolling villages they may come across aliens, and so they needed a handbook about what they looked like. And boy, oh boy, you'd be in for a surprise if you met one. Has anyone come what they believe to be face to face with aliens in their experiences at all? Nobody here, right? That's a rare sign. Yeah, stick your hand. Okay, so what happens is that there is human rights abuses in terms of extraterrestrial contactees. If you have peaceful contact with extraterrestrials and you put a website up to that effect, you may be lucky, you may get monitored, as was I. And it's brutal because you are neurally monitored. And also if you're starting to have, as I will tell you later, if you're starting to have liaison with extraterrestrials and you're speaking to them, it encroaches onto another security zone that nobody is meant to know about but now do. So when you see these guys saying in the press, oh well, UFOs, there's a boring explanation, we don't know what they are. Actually they do, and they're covering their ass for certain reasons of cover-up. It's disgraceful. I was tortured actually neurally. I was put under surveillance. I had the wake-up calls at 5 in the morning of the gunfire, and I will make no apology for saying any of that because that's what happened. So this is the real-life arena of contact with UFOs. And it's about spiritual strength when faced with adversity. I'm going to read you an excerpt from my book that's going to shock you, but it kind of like sets the platform. No, I don't think it will shock you, that's insulting to your intelligence. It sets the background to where we're leading with this talk and where I've come from and where I am now. That's my father. He was a very gifted and talented healer. He had psychic abilities. That's my darling mother. I looked after her for 8 years, 3 of which she had bowel incontinence. It broke my heart having to deal with all that as a son, but I've been through hell with all this. And my father was a gifted psychic. Something happened to my mother at a place of work that was quite unpleasant, and the police were involved, and she was stitched up for something she didn't do. And my father, who was basically an abuser, he was not a nice man but had this miraculous ability to heal people. My father sat in the living room of my house, closed his eyes and said and directed his energy to my mother's former place of work, which was now defunct, and blew the boiler room up. Honest to God, he blew the boiler room of the place sky high. Fire brigade were there. Half an hour later he'd blown it sky high because of what they'd done to my mother. It wasn't pleasant with him. He was not a pleasant man at all. And this is kind of like what happens when you walk, when an ordinary man, walks into the world of Dr. Strangelove, because currently at the moment, in terms of government and UFOs and the military, the left hand does not know what the right hand is doing. That's very clear. And I've got here some entries here where I actually am getting constantly targeted. In fact, I'm being abused. And that's a very good image, that one there, of the guy doing the abuse. That's a very good image. The rumour mill reports to me he's retired now and hasn't gone, is suffering ill health. And I want that bastard to reach for the drinks cabinet every time he hears my name. And considering that he started this circus on me with his mind-invasive antics, with his MK Ultra style antics, that it's gone from this to where we're going is staggering. Even he's probably very staggered, because it's as if one hand did not know what the other was doing, and he was targeting me, not aware of the circus in the skies above that was coming, thundering like an express train. They'd stepped their hand into human affairs. It's quite a situation to be in. There's some notes that I've written here where I can't remember what day it is due to my targeting. And that was in July 2003, and I was working 12-hour shifts. And when I was looking after my mother at the height of her dementia, I was being targeted, and that's a story in itself where the ETs actually came in and commented on it all. It's absolutely insane. And frankly, ladies and gents, I am lucky to be alive. I really am. So I'm going to read you an excerpt from my book, and that's the beautiful cover there. That's Izza, the aircraft that I bizarrely call Bernie. I affectionately call it, but long story. In 1980, this is the excerpt from my book. In 1980, I was underweight, dirty-looking boy in a Yorkshire town, walking down the street with an old pram that still shone. Its cot was removed, and 2 wooden boards on it. I used to pretend it was a tank. It had big wheels and springs on it, 1 old kettle, I had an old kettle on it, an exhaust, and some old car battery, and an iron. And it was all piled on, and it was like a scene from a third world country, because I was 10 years of age, and my mother and dad didn't have any money. We lived in a blasted house that didn't have any toilet. No, that had an outside toilet, no bathroom in it, no heating. And I had guys pulling up in cars when I was 10 years of age going, "Oi nigger, get a fucking wash," as they were going past me. I'm sorry for but that's what happened to me. It sets a contrast for you. They would then drove on, and all I had was this vision to help my parents. And what would then happen was the scrap man went berserk and said, "You've got to be 18 to sell scrap here." And then his wife came out, said what the hell was going on. And I said to her, "Well, my mum and dad are skint and I've come to sell this scrap and they need food." And she went and got bread, milk, tin of beans for us, bless her, put it in a bag. She said I could keep the pram, and off I went. I was abused by my father twice a day. And when he wasn't abusing me, he was abusing himself in front of me. And that's the contrast that we're going into. So we're going into that compared to what we're going into where we see the craft. In a way I'm blessed. In a way I'm very blessed, and I'm surprised. I'm 50 on Wednesday, I'm surprised I'm still here. So that's kind of like the gravity and contrast of the situation that is reflected through my book. And I was part of an operation to do with the UFO phenomena. Part of quite a big operation actually. When I came back from drama school, I went to drama school, so I had an incident with the UFOs in 1992. And then I came back from drama school. It didn't quite work out, drama school, and I started having strange goings on. One of the strange goings on that happened was the paradox that had been set with my work for future years, little would I know. But it sets a very bizarre paradox, and the Hindus, and the aliens for that matter, specifically call this paradox Yazmat. The paradox of Yazmat, or you are Yazmat, meaning I sow, I reap, I cause the future. So therefore, this is the paradox. This is one of the first things that went on, was we had this very bizarre incident of two glider craft coming in my sleep, like that, exactly like that. He's done a good job there. These two glider craft, noiseless as I'm sleeping, and they just come in. You can see them coming in, and they drop a beacon in the garden. And this beacon, it starts pulsing, da-da, like this, and I have no idea why. This was then followed up by the guy who we see there. I'm asleep again. There's a guy at my bedroom window floating in a sphere with all kinds of levers looking at me. This is interesting because he plays a part in the future. Now, the Yazmatic paradox kicks in, whereby if I hadn't have wrote about him in my book, would he have existed to do what he did? And this is the constant theme. The things I write about in my book create the situations in conjunction with the UFOs, hence Yazmat, the Yazmatic paradox. He was looking at me. He was actually a time traveller. And then it got even more bizarre when in about 97, I remember it quite well. In 97, I was asleep. And I haven't got the intellectual capacity to make all this up. I'm just reporting what was going on. I'm asleep, having a dream of these two people approaching me. These two people looked human, but they were far from human. They were possibly demons, or they were possibly hostile aliens, but they were not nice. And they came towards me, and they were going on about something, about me moving out of the house, and they were starting to transform in front of me into something else, not pleasant. Next minute I know, and this is the God's honest truth, one of these objects in my sleep, and they also fly over me, and who they are is fascinating. I'll come to that later. One of these objects came in, and the female, there was a man and a woman, and the woman looks to her left like that with such a look of horror on her face. I will never forget it. This thing comes in and starts firing off darts like a man possessed into the ether. Firing off darts. And this woman gets hit. The look on her face was absolutely horrifying. She goes spinning backwards. The other guy, he got hit as well. And what you're witnessing, you might think, oh, he's made that up, ladies and gentlemen. No, no, no. Think out the box. What you're actually seeing are operations involving UFOs in hyperspace. And there's a possibility that I'm seeing some sort of alien civilization that has developed some sort of drone that travels in dimensions that is armed. And it was keeping them back from me, because obviously I have a certain destiny to fulfill, it would appear. And that was the early incidents in 97, even before we got to the bit where the UFOs are then coming in over the house with the jets and the helicopters. So you can see, I at the moment, in these early years, have not got a clue what the bloody hell they're doing. But in simple terms, if we were to use Tolkien, I'm a ring bearer, I'm a Frodo, I've got the keys to the gate, it would appear. It's a very unusual thing, but you're talking intelligences, many, many dimensions upwards, being involved in the affairs of man, and somehow, God only knows, I appear to have been chosen in some way. It's similar to Tom DeLonge. When he was chosen by these people to do what he's doing, this might be a similar thing. And as I say again to you, ladies and gentlemen, I'll be on the money when the Akak fire of debunking me and none of this happened and I'm aligned, this, all that coming at me means I'm on the money as to what's going on. Extraterrestrials do exist. The joke being, this is the big joke, well, we don't know where they are. Well, we're searching for them. They bloody well do know where they are. They're in the oceans and they're in the Himalayas and they're off the coast of Chile. They told me this as I was routinely dealing with them. But the incident that happened before the UFOs started coming in was the old house and bedroom incident. Remember, I was catapulted, so we've moved house now. I think I'm back from stage school, to cut a long story short. We're in our new house. My father, God almighty, that's another thing. But anyway, we're there, and all of a sudden I'm waking up to this strange dream of somebody tying their hair back in the old dresser that we had in Robert Street. It's a 1930s dresser. The place was god-awful. We had damp in there, it smelt of wee. I could actually smell the place, it was so authentic. And then she turns round and looks at me and just went, how do I look and look like that? And I thought, my God, you are not from round here. And I suddenly realised that she was connected to what was going on around me. And she exuded physical health. She was absolutely amazing. And I'm going, come back, don't go. And she went. Now, me and her have got a bit of it. I discovered who she was and where she came from. And I'll come to that later. It's absolutely amazing. And the first true visions, as I say, began in '97. They were submarine related. These aliens, they're more from the movie The Abyss than we can ever know. The US Navy are telling you that, well, we don't know what they are in public. They do. They definitely do. And they monitor marine nuclear activities of humans. It's not a New Age platitude to suggest that, you know, there's a researcher out there called Richard Dolan who indicates, well, the aliens are going to intervene. Yeah, man, it's hippie stuff, where they're going to intervene in a nuclear war, and that's all bullshit and not going to happen. Well, I'm here to tell you that it will happen. This New Age thing, nuclear war, and the conflict with Russia, America and China is real, and there's possibly going to be an intervention occur. And I remember that vision I had in about '97. That submarine is being buzzed by a UFO, and I remember it's as if I could hear the crew being very wary of what they were seeing. And so began kind of like the liaison with the UFOs. That's the helicopter incident that happened to me. So when these UFOs started coming in, I had an incident with a helicopter. That's some art for my book there. But what happened was this at the height of the UFOs coming in, when they started coming into me, which I'll show next, that's a helicopter that buzzed me. It's an AS555. It's an unmarked green helicopter. It came from nowhere. I'm walking down the street, said goodbye to my mate one dinner time, and the bloody thing just appears from nowhere, from rooftops. And I don't know how I didn't hear it. It was as if it had some sort of strange baffling on the rotors, so you couldn't hear it. It circled me, and you can see it's bristling with sensors. Jane's Defence Weekly had a look at it, and that's the dramatic drawing of the thing hovering. It was literally hovering in front of me, traffic going under it, cars beeping their horns. Of course there'll be a perfect legitimate explanation for all that it's a pipe helicopter, or it's the military on exercise. Anything at all to deny what is going on, and they use the canon of authority. So if authority says, it must be true, and that's what you're up against as a contact experiencer. The flyovers began in about 1999, at the height of the mind-invasive harassment. There's a couple of incidents here. There's one where the triangle comes in. That's excellent work by Jason Gleaves. As we can see, this triangle that comes over, he's done some sort of illuminated central core on it. It's got a heat sensor on it. It's travelling at tremendous speed, and it's coming low over the house. This triangle is an actor and player in the drama in its own right. That's the UFO coming in, illuminating a TV antenna. It is very important. The antennas, I'll tell you later, but it's important. What it was doing there was important. It's forming a platform. It's forming a foundation to something. And that's an up-close shot. given by Jason. Also, that's a plasma UFO coming in over Holy Island before I gave a talk. So I'm just about to go in and give a talk, and I just think, oh, well, that's a nice view. Snap it. Jason says there's a UFO there. Luckily, we've got exclusive photos from Russia that are not in circulation on the internet that I am going to show you about who these beings are behind this UFO. It was taken by somebody, it's not in circulation, and Jason has very kindly let me use it, and I'll show you what is going on there, but they're plasma beings. A lot of thinking about humans and, you know, and our biology, but there's also plasma beings out there. It's as if the Creator has a great big kind of playground of life that he's doing at the moment. And that antenna thing there, that UFO that illuminated the antenna, triggered the covert harassment, triggered the strange phone calls, triggered being followed. And know that they are from another planet, yes, but that UFO that's illuminated a TV antenna, I would bet money that it's from one of the bases deep in the ocean that the aliens use. And that's the standing joke about it all, the comical irony behind it. And that's the Chronicles that I wrote. I wrote my Chronicles, hence the term I Alien, the secret UFO Chronicles, and they go on to talk about what I'm doing is day by day I'm being harassed electronically, but also I'm having interaction with UFOs. And day by day I'm writing it all down, but you can clearly see I'm just writing and I've not pieced together what's going on around me. What is actually going on is an operation, an actual communication network that is actually communicating with UFOs, all based on the foundation of the research that we're doing at the moment. In other words, the future is being written. In other words, it's Yazmat. And I'm very glad that I didn't put them in the bin, because I nearly did. I had enough. I'd lost my mother. I'd lost the house I was living in at the time. There was all sorts going on. And I just had enough, and it's lucky I kept them because I chronicled them and I put them in a book, and I'm very glad I did. And in the thing about this, in the situation with the Chronicles, it shows that there is a precise operation going on that takes the advanced information programs that we see now, but takes it to another level, whereby there's a network being designed to communicate across galaxies and with other beings, with a human agency and the ETs. There's something definitely going on. And I couldn't understand what was going on at first, and then I got it. It's part of a network, and some of us are gateways to that. Some of us contactees are gateways. There's two extraordinary incidents in my book, one of which is what's known as the hyperspatial cannon incident. And I write in my book that I've got the telephone going in my head. I'm fast asleep. I've got the telephone going in my head, and somebody going, the words were something like, Recon 209 here, if I turn my camera left, can it move left? This voice is going to me. I'm going, yes. And if I turn my camera right, can it move right? Yes. If I go up and down, yes. Thank you very much, he said, and put the phone down. Good man, actually, was his words, and put the phone down. Next minute I know. And this is something straight out of a science fiction movie, as I recall from my Chronicles. This is from my Chronicles. At the time I didn't know what was going on, but there was an incident involving what we could call talls. And what happened was there was this bizarre situation where in the distance I could see these tall ETs coming towards me across the hyperdimension. Next minute I know there's this alarm going off. I hear these voices going, task group recon, I hear fire for effect, and I see, next minute I know, blasting across hyperspace, cannon fire at these aliens. Next minute I know as well, other visions come in. There was one vision of this ship here, which I find actually fascinating. That's a vision taken across the network of operation of another human extraterrestrial group, and their ships on the sea in another universe, with antenna systems listening outwards, signalling. So what this is actually a signals network. It's a signals network. Compared to, just compare this, ladies and gents, you see where we're going with it. I'll go back. Compared to me actually stood there, trying to work out what's going on in 2008, I'm sure you will agree that I've come quite a long way with it. You can see the contrast, you can see what's going on. I've really come a long way with it, and I'm very proud of myself as to what we've done. So we've got the visions, we've got the UFOs coming in and kicking ass, we've got some sort of communication network being set up, And the thing with the communication network, it is not ruled by the rules of time. So when they're coming in and doing what they're doing now, it has ramifications for the future, and it's as if some future agency has clearly understood what is going on and has set up a communication network with them. It got mind-blowing just recently, actually, but I'll come into that later. We've got the helicopters and the flyovers and the Chronicles and the 2 incidents there. I found that fascinating. The ships, because it's like based on remote viewing but on steroids, when you're remote viewing a target, you're kind of like looking down at it like that. Well, that's, although Simon's done an excellent job, I was actually looking down on the ships like that. They were big ships, and they weren't ships of human nature with big antennas on them. And I just found it mind-blowing. And so we did a nice little drawing there just to celebrate that moment, because I genuinely found it mind-blowing to be part of that. This is the one, however, this is the fascinating one taken from Russia, and Jason, we're not divulging where this photo was taken, but that's meant to be the image of a plasma being. And there are meant to be their plasma craft coming in at Holy Island. Just before I give a talk, let's just see, just before I give a talk, and what they were explaining to me before I was abducted or taken in their craft, according to my journals, I was astounded because I put the journals on my shelf for years. In fact, there was a couple of times I looked at them and thought, what the bloody hell are they about? What am I going to do with them? And it's a good job I kept them, because there was a crucial incident in there where these beings had turned up and more or less explained to me, and they were very nice. They were very sorry about that. They were very nice. They were very peaceful ETs. And it was they were more or less indicating to me that their dot of light UFOs, their Foo Fighter UFOs, were actually watching World War II. So when you saw these little dots of light going near bombers and stuff like that, it seemingly was them. And that's a very exclusive photo from somebody in Russia who had contact with them. And they were very nice. And I remember being taken out over the Yorkshire coast by them, put back again, and they were watching. And I continue to watch. Now the question, ladies and gentlemen, is, what are they watching? Even though they're watching humanity, they're doing something else as well. They're actually watching other alien groups. It's quite a scenario going on behind the scenes. And this is the one here as well, where I believe that humanity made contact, like we, the government, etc. They made contact with the UFOs. And that's meant to be an incident on this network that was sent to me. They built a network. It goes far into the future. You're talking of a vision there that was shown to me in the future from about 2130. And I'm just going to read. It reads like science fiction, doesn't it? But in fact, it's really going on. And it's taken me years to piece together as a contact experiencer what exactly these experiences are all about. For example, 1 minute I'm being awoken by gunfire by some effing lunatic in the intelligence services who's got the MK Ultra Tech to do it. The next minute I've got a UFO flying in, illuminating an antenna, and it's all quite a lot to handle. This is the thing, this is what they said to me about this. It came to me across the network. I'm just going to share it with you. We're all friends together, and I just thank you for listening. Friend Tony, San Francisco Bay, that's where the UFO incident is there. We can see the bay and the bridge in the distance there. An indicator of her support, her being some senior alien of some description. The operation has expanded and an alien scientific liaison is openly taking place. They are referring to a female ET that would be of equal high rank in the human military. It went further with this fascinating images. So there was images of helicopters there and ships protecting what they said was the doorway of human perception, where one world opens and another closes. Their world is in peril. Now I'm a bit baffled, and I've been continually baffled as to which extraterrestrial group they're referring to here, but there is an indication of the ET also wishing to continue speaking to me, and there will be more incidents with them. There are also incidents of a biblical nature coming, which they were, and we're coming. Secondly, it remains a mystery, as I say, as to which ET group they're referring to, but the ETs called the Navy the Human Navy Force, which were assisting us. So my chronicles indicate that there's some extraterrestrial group, and I've seen them, I've seen the ETs, but I'm not sure which group this is, and I'm kind of like left a bit in the dark as to what is going on. But that's the vision taken in 2008 from my journals. It's a crap drawing. 2007 maybe? can't quite see the date there. Yeah, anyway, about then. So that's the vision taken. I draw it, and Neil Giddy's Ward brings it to life with this dramatic encounter, and I have strong reason to suspect that this man being lifted aboard the UFO is the man in the sphere that came to me in '97. And if I don't write my book, he may not see this. He may not exist, and the event may not happen. That's the Asmat paradox. That's the paradox of it all. There again, I suppose, my work's online, and he may see it, but it involves a man that's not even been born yet, that appears to be of the intelligence and calibre to understand the science of the ETs at a very advanced level. And there were other images coming across this network as well, scientific symbolism, all this kind of thing. So I say, I'm sure you would agree, ladies and gents, from 2008 to this point now, it's been quite a journey, quite a roller coaster ride. The military with me, military incidents as well, were never far away. I know there was one particular evening that I was actually very depressed. I was working full time. I had a very senior job in security, dealing with a lot of stuff to do with Northern Ireland and all that kind of thing. It was absolutely unbelievable. And I remember going to the River Ouse at Selby, on the Ouse bank there. I'm very depressed with it all. We've had the helicopters come in. We've had the strange visions. We've had the UFOs continually illuminating TV antennas. I'll show you footage of that later. We've had all this going on. Can't piece it together. I'm stood on the riverbank, and yes, I'm actually wanting to throw myself in. I'm feeling a bit suicidal, actually. This is the abuses of contact experiences. And not only that, you sometimes are suspicious of the ETs because they like to fence it, and you don't quite know what they're doing either. So therefore, you are a man who is caught up in a situation that you do not understand, and that's the thing. So I'm on the riverbank, and I'm trying to understand what's going on. Next minute I know, the RAF in our area has an important airbase in the area. The RAF are on routine exercise, night flying, and this jet comes literally across me, and distinctly flashes his lights on, off, on, off, on, off, checking that I was okay. It was a Tornado. I thought at first it was a Harrier, but a Tornado has a low speed handling capability. It can slow itself down. It quite surprised me how slow it was going. And he was just checking on me. The sound around me, there was silence. It was like this strange silence, as if to say something's coming. And next minute I know, in this field, there, what Richard's done a lovely drawing there for me. In the field there, bright flash of light, just like that. Next minute I know, this aircraft here hits his afterburner. He literally hits his afterburners because he's seen something. He goes chasing after the UFO, and next minute we know, the UFO and the RAF are flying side by side like this. Now, when you're following the logic of the situation, that's because the aliens are wanting to communicate with our military. And so they're flying along like this. It's very clever. The aliens are very smart. So in the skies above us, we've got this attempt at communication going on, and it's covered up for nefarious reasons. We then had the incidents begin with the situation of the UFOs. They literally started coming in over my house. And I, ladies and gentlemen, are a bit baffled. It's 1999. I'm actually a bit baffled now as to what's going on. I will be shown in later years, but this is one particular incident done by Jason Gleaves on the right there. Image analysis of the triangle coming in. And as we can see, we've got two dot of light UFOs going right past it. 1, 2, like that. Now, they're actually different extraterrestrial groups. One is Nordic, one is maritime, and they're communicating with each other because it's all about communication. And my illustrator Simon, I think, ladies and gents, has done an excellent job there, as you can see, of the two UFOs passing his cockpit. So we've done like a, for my book, we've done like a cockpit view of what that pilot might be seeing just for the sheer hell of it. And that's probably what he saw from the triangle. That was one of the first overflights. And we declared their hand, these people from the maritime lot declared their hand because I understood that there was various medical interventions done on me, I'm told. There were incidents in Formby and Yorkshire. At the time in 2018, I was trying to look after my mother who was dying of dementia. It was a struggle and we lost the battle and I was being targeted. And this lady who I saw way back in '97 came over the house with the UFO. That's what she looks like. I've never seen an alien outraged, but this lady was an alien. She was morally outraged over what I had to put up with, and she told me this. She said, I am a marine ET, I'm a marine person from another universe, and in our universe we have oceans, and we use yours as bases as well. And that's the bit that they're perhaps keeping quiet about. She's therefore is like something out of the abyss, what we're dealing with. It's very interesting. That's what she looked like, and that's actually her UFO, I do believe. It's like a very advanced craft. And if you look at the, as will come later, if you look at the US Navy aircraft carrier Nimitz incident in 2008, the same type of UFO appears in front of them, and I'll just delve a bit deeper into her background and where she actually comes from. So there's a showing of presence in the skies of them. Here they are again, and this time over my house. We've got the actual thing over my house at the moment. My mother's unwell. I'm trying to cope with it all. I've got a scenario where I'm sat in the back garden, and all of a sudden I'm actually filming that thing coming over me because I thought it was a drone. It's not a drone, it's an Airbus. Jane's Defence Weekly have confirmed that's the Airbus, but the thing going over the top of it is a UFO, and it's going over my garden, and it's going at speed. I mean fast. It's them, they're here, they're showing the presence, it's quite intentional. And if we look at that as compared to a UFO seen in the Pacific, off one of the Pacific Islands, we can certainly see that she might be telling the truth, that she's part of a maritime UFO grouping that are out there in our oceans, and I'm actually talking to them. But in our society, that's not allowed. In our society, there is a hidden security apparatus that's even hidden from our own government that targets people like me who are having communication with them for all the wrong reasons, as I'll come to later. I'm sorry about this malware bites, I'll have to sort that out. So that was the comparison, and she was from the oceans, and that was the liaison that happened. We're also seeing an advanced aero capability, and I'll play the clip of this later, but for example, here's one of the triangles coming in, and there's a UFO that actually comes in from its left over the Brayton Bar for local beauty spot. It comes in from the left. It is a 360-degree rotation around it, and it takes off at speed to the right, demonstrating an advanced aero capability that we do not possess. They've done that intentionally. So we've got illumination of TV antennas, demonstration of advanced aero capability, flying alongside our military craft, but they're a threat. We're told they're a threat. Somebody somewhere is not telling us the truth. Just coming up to, well, thank you very much for this lovely afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a privilege to speak to you. And as you can see, so we've come a long way if we get the contrast right of me stood there with a microphone, having no clue of PowerPoint, trying to understand what's going on around me to where I am now. I think it's quite a journey. And what I want to do is just quickly whiz forward now and play you some UFO footage. I want to show you we've got so far strange goings on. I wanted to point out to you as well, did you note that with this UFO that's coming in, everything they do is intentional. Illumination of the TV antennas, which I'll play the footage to, flying over the house named military craft. And that is not a coincidence that has clearly morphed itself into a square, indicating dimension, indicating gateway. At the end of the talk, I'm going to do a very powerful meditation that was inspired, actually inspired by the ETs. It's very powerful. I think we'll have a go with that at the end, if that's all right with you guys. So that's a square. That UFO has morphed itself into a square quite intentionally to signal that it comes from a higher dimensional space. It's quite clear in what they're doing. Very clear indeed. The Chronicles, we've obviously seen the incidents across the network that they built, the plasma beings. Oddly enough, when I did something from the BBC One show about all this, they were going to use this image. This one it recently came to me from Jason. It's an exclusive thing. You're the first guys to see it, actually. But basically, the gist of it was when the One show was filming me, I was explaining that UFO image, and I said this Italian physicist who worked at Project Hesdalen in Norway. Hesdalen was the investigation of UFOs by the Norwegian government as to what was going on. And I said this physicist has stood up in public and said that he believes that these UFOs at Hesdalen are part of our beings that are manipulating plasma like we would manipulate DNA, and he said that in public. and I told that to the BBC crew, but they conveniently didn't want to use that, they didn't want to include it. So you've got this constant kind of silence going on that's quite comical for very esoteric occult reasons, actually, not for the reasons you would think. We've gone through the contact, we've gone through that, we've gone through that. Right, okay, let's just go to... Yes, this is what I wanted to show you. So I'm just going to play you my first clip now of the super manoeuvrability incident. So we've got antennas, but we've also got the situation with the UFOs where they're actually coming in and doing manoeuvrability technology like no other. So not only are they demonstrating via antennas and illuminating them, which I'll play the footage of, they're also demonstrating flight manoeuvrability, quite intentional, that we don't possess. And this is one of the clips here that I want to play you. It was taken over Brayton Bath. I think you can see that, yeah. It was reanalysed by Jason Gleaves. Let's go into it. That's the triangle craft, as we can see there. It's actually a triangle. That's coming in over the local beauty spot. There it is, flying along. He's got all three domes and the middle dome illuminated. It's not a passenger jet. In fact, it wasn't making a sound when it came over. But what's interesting is what happens next. There we go. That's further analysis of our triangle craft there, going over the Bath. In the next sequence, the UFO comes in and rotates around it 360 degrees and flies off right. In it comes, can you see that? That's the small UFO coming along to the triangle now. I believe them to be two groups communicating with each other. There it goes. Did you see that, ladies and gents? It flies off to the right there at speed. It's showing a flight manoeuvrability we don't possess. That's it. So, small object close to a UFO, direction of flight, and it passes it. Jason's done a good job for me there, he really has. And then in the same year, an image of a flying triangle, the same craft again, coming in over the house, directly over me. And the story behind this triangle I'll tell you at the end. And that's a comparison with a police search helicopter and again a helicopter. So you can clearly see that in the skies above us there's something going on. That's the triangle craft again. There's definitely something going on in the skies above us that we should be, or our governments should be, paying attention to. But instead we are getting this narrative in the media of we don't know what they are, blah, waffle drone. And I was going to swear then, it really annoys me. Really annoys me. So, at the moment, in Belgium, there was incidents where the Belgian Air Force F-16 fighters were engaging flying triangles in 1999. No, 96 maybe. Belgium triangle incident, 89. They were engaging triangle craft, their F-16 jets, and they couldn't get a lock on them. And what was happening was these aircraft were accelerating to speeds of Mach 9, and the F-16s couldn't get a lock on them. And the Nimitz counter is the same, and they called it an elongated egg. The Nimitz carrier group were engaged by UFOs. This is not surprising, because there they are, nuked up, carrying all the nukes on them, and they turn up on their doorstep, this maritime group's doorstep. There's bound to be some argy-bargy. It's similar to the Abyss. And as you can see, that's the description. They were a solid white smooth UFO with no edges and 46 foot in length. Uniformly coloured, no pylons or rings, and the F-18s could not obtain a lock. But what's going on in the skies above us is a clear attempt at communication. We're not being invaded. In fact, an alien invasion, has anybody heard of Project Bluebeam? Yeah. That would be very difficult to pull off. You couldn't pull it off in the current climate, and the reason for this is because of the extraterrestrial groups that are out there, and one knows what the other is doing. And I'll come to that later, but it would be a very difficult stunt to pull off. That's, for example, the Nimitz carrier video of 2004, there, and that's a UFO over my garden that's about to illuminate a TV antenna, as we can see. And not only does it illuminate a TV antenna, it literally does something very bizarre with the antenna to demonstrate a technology that we don't have. In other words, they're signalling to us. And that we're opening the hailing frequency. We should actually open the hailing frequencies to them. Our military are definitely being signalled. That's not one of my images. Jason sent me that one. That's a UFO passing a military helicopter at speed. and it hints at the foundation and the establishment of a communication network. For example, on this one here, UFO near radio antenna, UFO near radio antenna in 1999. They're hinting at communication. I'm now going to play some clips which show you these UFOs actually. I'll do the past suspected UFO film near Air Force, UFO morphing. Yeah, I'll just do this. So this was the first one that happened to me with the radio antenna. So this is the one that caused me some harassment by unidentified sources. A covert group had surveillance on me after I took this footage. It's not a peaceful path. It really isn't. And we'll just have a look at this. So there it is, comes in. I'm sure you'd agree with me that's not a helicopter or an aircraft of any type. Not even making a noise, is it? If it was a helicopter, the sound would be illuminates antenna just then. Flies forward. And I think at one point, let's just see where it goes. Yeah, and as you can see, that's clearly what it did there. You see that, ladies and gents, can't you? That's actually illuminating a TV antenna, and it's not doing it for the sheer hell of it either. That's that one. And if we look a bit further into it, we will discover that it also does this one as well. My ham, I'm a radio ham, and I have what's known as a Comet HF antenna, and this thing is going to actually do something where it demonstrates a morphing capability. So it will change itself and literally fly through the antenna and fly out of it again. Quite intentional. Here it comes. That's my antenna.
Right, there we go,
see that, can't you?
That's the UFO.
That's the UFO.
Talking about now.
Similar to the Tic Tac UFO.
Over me.
I'll just pause it there so you get your bearings. That's now near my ham radio antenna, which is a 7-foot aluminium HF antenna. Boom, straight through the middle, outside the other way.
There she blows.
There she blows.
Not bad at all, that one.
Yeah, not a bad shot.
I don't know whether that's the one that we saw earlier that's been creeping around.
Back to the antenna.
I've lost her. Completely lost her. That's because she's winked out on me. Come back to me.
A technology we can only grasp, and that's where it's going with them. So there it is. That's it, actually caught at the right moment, flying. It's as if it's changed itself from one great big 46-foot UFO, shrunk itself, flown through the radio antenna. Jason's caught that at the point where it flies directly through it, and it morphs itself and flies out the other side again, which I actually find quite a fascinating piece of footage. And that's it. And no, we didn't put a torchlight on it, if any, as some people might think. We're not into doing that. So that's that one. And then we have the further one where it, let's have a look. This is the one, UFO past there. Once again, the same Tic Tac as the same UFO, similar to what the Americans have been seeing, comes in near my radio antenna again. That's my ham radio antenna, but this time she's not, I say she's not going to morph through the antenna, she's just going to pass it. So that's not an aircraft, ladies and gents, is it? It's silent, noiseless, passes past the antenna, but doesn't morph as compared to the other, and goes out the other side. There she blows. Enlarged footage, as we can see. Clearly what they are is they're from the oceans. We are definitely dealing with some maritime extraterrestrial group. They even confirmed that to me. So we're definitely dealing with that. And here's the other one at the height of the world going bonkers, and me trying to look after my mother. Here she is in her UFO coming to say hello. And it was, I think, around about this time that she revealed who she was to me. I think we can safely say that the evidence is mounting here that something's going on, isn't there? She is there. That's the object. That's her, because it's a female pilot. There we go with it. And see how it continually morphs itself. You're dealing with an advanced technology here. going to move behind the cloud, so we know it's moving. So that they're just some of the footage that I've taken over the years, and I think that's the two UFOs, and this one as well. This is the one where the Airbus is coming in and it gets buzzed by the maritime UFO, because I believe they're from the oceans, and it's going to get buzzed. I like this footage. So here we go. So let's just see what we got. Two innocent looking white specks on the images of UFOs. Yeah, there's two, but we couldn't find it. Right, so as Jason says, that's the jet. It's an Airbus as identified by Jane's Defence, and coming in at speed. Oh yes, it is two. All right, I'm having a memory. Can you see? There's two, yeah. So a further visual analysis is revealing. That was in 2016. My mother died a bit later. It's terrible. So there it is. It's travelling at great velocity though. I mean, it's going like hell. It's a speed that we couldn't comprehend. The video software couldn't even, on the slowest pause, it was still travelling at speed. So Jason did it in 3 separate frames. Here we go. The camera zooms into the passing civilian aircraft, which is an Airbus. We've identified that. There we go. That's the Airbus. I thought it was a UAV. And then we zoom in closer to discover there. Similar to UFOs identified in the Pacific region, it's a maritime extraterrestrial group that we're dealing with, definitely. And that, but you're not told that in the media. You're not told that in the public domain that that's exactly what we're dealing with. We could learn a lot from them, and they're not invading us. It's not an invasion. I hope you enjoyed those clips, but it's certainly not an invasion that we're dealing with here. And that just shows, doesn't it? There's something going on, and I think once again that Jason's used some special software and just captured beautifully the morphing kind of. He's put the software on it and filtered it of the UFO illuminating my TV antenna and TV antenna again. It forms a communication network across hyperspace. Definitely. There we go again. There's the antenna. It's a tic-tac UFO. It's like a UFO that the Nimitz carrier group we're dealing with. They're maritime, definitely, this group in particular. So then we got to ask, what is the UFO threat? Well, as I said earlier, what you've got at the moment, if we focus on UFOs only, they're saying in the media that the UFOs are a threat. The threat this, the threat that. Everyone from Nick Pope to Luis Elizondo to Hal Puthoff, it's all a threat. But they're not sure what the threat is, and the threat is a two-factored thing. The joke being is that the UFOs are pointing out that there is a threat from other UFOs, but they're not telling you that bit either. But that appears to be what is going on. And when I was doing some work, for Channel 4 in February, I think it was. January, now let me think of the date. April 2014, we'll go for that. And basically what was happening was I was going to film, I was actually going to film for these guys. And we did film, but before that, remember what you've all seen, UFOs illuminating TV antennas, me having these extraordinary visions, but we haven't seen these guys yet, but in 2014 I did. And I was asleep in bed. I was going to catch a train to London. It was about 5 o'clock. The train was going to leave at about 7, and I had this astounding vision implanted in my mind. I've never seen anything quite like it. There was the Andromeda Galaxy image. It was precision stuff. Andromeda Galaxy image there, 2 clocks, one at 11:45, one at 11:55, and the 2 triangles that are dramatis personae in their own right in all this. And what happened was that man, and my artist friend Paul Brennan has done an excellent first-class, I'm sure you would agree, rendition of what he looked like. That's a Nordic extraterrestrial, as real as day. They're real, they're here, and he was speaking to someone. And he was talking like this, talking away, but the volume was turned off. I wasn't hearing it. Well, that makes actual perfect sense when you piece it together like a detective. We've looked at antennas. We've looked at the way they're communicating. I know that it's across a network. He is now communicating across a network to somebody that I'm not privy to. I possibly believe that he's communicating actually in this point in history to another agency further up the human history line, but using all this as like a gateway for some reason. The field is very important. That field is also very important there. It was at the height of the Ukraine crisis, and it all mysteriously backed off. Our governments, the government of India and China, for example, do actually know that Nordics have kind of like bases in that area, and you wouldn't want to mess with them. And it was interesting the comments that were made, because I can be honest to God, it's so routine to be speaking to them, and that's the taboo thing about it. We're seeing all this farce in the media that we're trying to contact them, blah blah blah. They're already here. They've been in Earth's backyard for a very long time, and you talk to them. Some of us can talk to them, and it's not peaceful, ladies and gentlemen, and I wouldn't wish it on you, because wish and you'll get what you wish for, as I did. And that's the diagram that he gave me. Very accurate. Now, the odd thing is about that diagram is this. The odd thing about this diagram is that I was filming outside the Royal Institute for International Affairs. It is hearsay and superstition that the Royal Institute are involved in the UFO phenomenon anyway. But what is a bizarre coincidence is there is a contactee in New Zealand called Alec Newald, who wrote a book called Co-Evolution. Driving down the street from Auckland, New Zealand, he suddenly disappears. He thinks he's had a road accident. He's got two ghosts coming towards him, but they're not ghosts, they're aliens. And it would appear they're from another dimension, and it would appear he's been abducted. 10 days have passed, he appears back in Auckland again, doesn't know where the hell he is, and he's been missing for 10 days, according to his book, Co-Evolution. I highly recommend it. According to Alec, some blokes turned up at his premises wanting to investigate his car, because it was subjected to high electrical voltages. One man was from Australian Defence Intelligence, the other guy, he claimed, was from Royal Institute of International Affairs, and he had to look up who they were. And they wanted his car for research and analysis purposes. Somehow they knew where he'd been. So, is it a coincidence that that vision appeared on the day I was going there? I don't think so, but the jury's out on it. But that was my first vision with the Nordics, my first contact with them. And they're quite a crowd. So that was my first. And in the first appearance that I had with him, there was some things that they were saying in the course of my communication with them. I think it's simpler if I just simply tell you what they said. I'm not here to bullshit. I've been in this business 40 years, and one of the key reasons to my success is my narrative has not changed, and I don't bullshit, I just tell it like it is, so that people can make an informed choice. People, if you alter anything and start lying, people have a habit of detecting things, and I've stuck with it, and this is where it's got me. One of the first things they said is this: they're concerned there are no heroes in war, but the other thing that is in the current strategy at the moment of the AATIP stuff and all that, what they're saying is that UFOs are a threat, and we are concerned that some adversaries may get hold of that technology, opposed to their perception of human beings when they say we make first-class weapons that can kill but cannot seem to find a solution to oceanic pollution. You see the difference in mindset. The also staggering thing about this, and I found this staggering, is that their education system, the Nordics, have children and teenagers who know routinely as a matter of education that the universe is populated. Can you see this? This contrast that's going on is frankly staggering. And what they're doing is they're warning. They're warning us. They're not a threat. They're continually warning. It's a free-tried thing, the UFO threat, because they're warning nature. There's a warning from them about nature and the environment, the fact that our oceans could end up flooding us if we're not careful. We've got to get this right. But it appears nobody's listening. There's a contact theme with them. I've reason to suspect that they are aware, and I have reason to suspect, although once again can't prove it, that the government of France may have actually spoken to them, but I can't prove it. I just can't prove anything on that. But it's just in the long story that goes on with my liaison with them, and they saved my life on 3 occasions. I'll come to that in a minute. So that's the location of the UFOs. There's our triangles. They're artificially intelligent, very advanced craft, and that's our field. It would appear that this vision that I had and that field provoked this very bizarre, biggest air exercise that I think Britain or even the region had ever seen, where we had air forces coming in from Germany. We had typhoon jets over the town. It was as if we were being invaded, and they were paying close attention to that field, specifically that field when the air exercise took place. That's a 683 Squadron Hercules. That circled my house 7 times. There he is there he is again. And the important thing to bear in mind is, as he's doing all this circling, he actually waved at me. He's got eyes on that field. He can see that field from where he is. Now, there's a bit of a 2-year gap between the air exercise and my vision, but I can't help but wonder why specifically that area, that field, what were they doing? Well, perhaps they were on the hunt for UFOs, or they were aware that something was going on. So my team, for that Hercules, circling my house 7 times, we bet it's being watched, and we were right. It was being watched, definitely. And look at that. Can you see, ladies and gentlemen? That's the Hercules, and in the background, our same Pacific Maritime type UFO again, watching. So we've got antennas, we've got our military being signalled to. We haven't been invaded yet. They're not going down the street killing people and lasering them. There's obviously something very deep going on, I'm sure you would agree. And that's actually the Hercules being monitored by the UFO from 683 Squadron. And it circled my house 7 times. It was quite comical. Yeah. And there's another example taken near where I live, near RAF Woodvale, of the same type of UFO again, passing a helicopter. We've got bases out there in the oceans. They're routinely they're trying to establish communication. I'm quite confident of that. And so I looked after my mother for a period of 8 years, 3 of which she was incontinent and we couldn't get help. We were just on the cusp of whether we could get help or not, and it tipped when she got the dementia. Now what happened to me is that the interactions actually increased with them, but I was going through hell with my mother. And then what happened was my mother sadly died of dementia in a hospital. We lost the battle to her. She was sat in the hospital bed saying, "Anthony, I want to let it go, Anthony. You're not going to be cross with me." She's saying, and I was going, "Mother, no, I'm not going to be cross with you. You've had enough, love. You're dying. Listen, honest to God, please, let it go." And I had an umbilical hernia at the time that was nearly 2 inches out. If you'd have seen me a few years ago, I was quite rotund. Well, that was because of my hernia. And there I am in the hospital bed after the operation. And that's when further interaction took place. And I lost everything. I lost the house I was living in from 1986. I had to move to Southport. Then I had to travel back to Southport to have the operation. And it's in that bed there, a few hours later, that I got visited by that woman there. And she is called Izza. So she told me. And what she had to tell me was very interesting indeed in my hospital bed. So what happened in my hospital bed with these Nordics, I moved to Southport. They indicated to me that they will be back to see me in November. I didn't understand why. Well, that was because my operation was in November. It was a close run thing. I'd lost my mother. I'd lost the house. The surgeon said I was getting possible gangrene in this hernia. Because I'd been that busy looking after my mother, I hadn't even noticed. 3 things, and I was feeling suicidal actually. I'd had enough. It was too much for a man to deal with. And it was in this incident, in the hospital bed where I was being targeted, I was recovering from the operation, I thought I would die, I thought I wouldn't get out of the hospital, that my vision was once again filmed, but it was filled with this spectacular vision of the Andromeda Galaxy there, and then there was kind of like this woman appeared in it, as if she was speaking across a network like on CNN, because they'd established the network. It had worked. My assessment is correct. That's what they're going to do. They've not done it yet, and yet they have, by strange paradox. That woman said to me a few things that I can't talk about on camera. I'm not going to talk about it. But it was concerning other aliens. It was concerning the fact that there's quite a battle going on. But more importantly, it was concerning that I am the father of a daughter. And that staggered me. And you see where we're going with this, that sometimes aliens can be quite narcissistic. You don't know why. You don't actually know what the hell has gone on. Part of you is screen memory. So I'm communicating to you the real frontline involvement of what it's like to be involved with them. And that lady said, "My darling Tony," as if something, there was an inference all the time of affection to me, as if something had happened, but we don't know what. I estimate my daughter to be about 8 years of age. I'd like to see her. I hope to see her before my dying day. She'll have grown up now. But that is kind of like what was going on. And it even hints in my effing journals, and I'm not getting it, that I'm actually, in the Chronicles that I've not quite read, it hints that I'm integrating with them. There's all sorts going on. I just haven't got it because I'm being hit at all angles. It was god awful, but that's what happened. And I survived the operation, and I'm lucky to tell you. She told me in the course of the conversation I had with her, which was very brief, that the Nordics are divided into this. So they have an exploration command, they have a special operation command and a defence command. And the name was Isagardamenian, she said, which is very Hebrew sounding. And the standing joke was that I'm the only man on earth who knows one of the full names of one of their military. But that's the kicker, judiciary. That's the thing. So these extraterrestrials have judiciary like we do. That's why it's very difficult for another alien civilization to invade us. In fact, currently it's very difficult for a certain alien civilization to go on the rampage and do what it's doing. And it's not good. And that causes a clear division with them. I have to be careful what I say on that issue, but basically the Nordic ETs have a judiciary and they are connected to Andromeda. But communication and technology means that they can, via thought coherence, via the speed of thought, via non-locality, they can communicate quite easily. And that was the thing. And according to Isa, she was in Defence Command, and I hope that the saga will continue where I'll be able to meet my daughter, and the saga just went on with me. I'd lost my mother, I'd lost everything. Yeah, it was hard, it was really effing hard. And I ended up wandering around in complete states of exhaustion and suicidal around Southport. I was severely depressed. The church found me actually, and they did a bloody good job. They helped me, I got a lovely flat. I can't complain now. But at the time, I had an incident where I was collapsing with mental exhaustion. And I was telling my friend in the United States, who is also a contact experiencer, that I'm being hit in all directions. I can't cope. And her words were, I'm just sharing this story with you, her words were, I'm going to have a word with the people who I'm a contactee with. There's another group out there, I want to talk to them about you. And she did that, and over the Marine Lake, that turned up. That's a triangle. I've not taken that one, that was taken in America, but it's a fine example of what I saw. 3 pink lights, triangle, 10 seconds, they're gone. And in that 10 seconds, something happened where something was adjusted in me. I could feel my energy levels altered, and I never suffered mental exhaustion again. I mean, I was collapsing. It was too much for me. And they intervened, and that's her again. I say her because she was, what's that colour, guys? That colour, what is it? What's that colour? Green, it's not green. What do you call it?
Jeans.
Aquamarine. No, call it aquamarine. Yeah, aquamarine will do. But basically, that's the. She came in over the buildings there to see how I was, and that's the colour of her skin, green. And she mimicked the colour of the craft to let me know it was her. They're keeping their distance because there's something going on in the skies above us where these ETs are actually in conflict with each other, and humanity is kind of caught in the middle, and that's her. So there's been some frightening goings on with them. There's been rows with them. What they're doing, it's like the galactic equal of NATO versus the galactic equal of Russia, and there's like an alien Cold War. And unfortunately, the American government decided to buy a used UFO of aliens they do not know, and have regretted it ever since. And it went something like this: buy the used UFO of us, Mr. Government. Look the other way over what we're doing. We're going to move in the house down the street. Do you get that so far? This is very serious stuff. This is where the block to disclosure has now occurred. So they flogged this technology to America, which is the equivalent of an half a daily second-hand car, but they're not going to tell them that. They're moving down the road, and then all of a sudden these guys start hearing that they've moved in down the road and are playing loud music. Now, when I say playing loud music, what do you think I would metaphorically mean by that?
Alien abduction.
You clever man, yeah. Absolutely. And you see, because we have these guys here with a judiciary, they're an advanced outfit, objections, Your Honour, and we have now this alien Cold War with America in the middle, and that's the bit they're not telling you. And it was quite hair-raising to know all that, and I have to be very careful what I say about it, but basically that's what it is. It's a Cold War in the skies above. There's also the other thing that they recently looked at. The To the Stars Academy actually published the fact that there was some of their aerospace intelligence guys had suggested that there was a control mechanism controlling human affairs, which there is. And they went into it in quite detail. It was quite brave of them actually about all this. But in the early days, in about the 1950s, they had something, an agency called the Collins Elite. It was formed separately from MJ12, and they believed that this agency, consisting of the Army, Navy and FBI, that the UFOs were demonic. There was a demonic component to them, and the UFO, it kind of like types in, this demonic invasion ties in with the collective consciousness of mankind. So the concern being is that there is a manipulation of nations into conflict. There's definitely something like that going on. It's all precision engineered, and the Collins elite seem to know this. The actual thing about this is that they were using F-94B Starfire fighters that could actually fire their Mighty Mouse rockets as they were called, 12 salvos at a time at the UFOs. There were major incidents in the 1950s involving UFOs coming in over Washington and over America, and these jets were the primary source that went up after them to shoot them down. However, some jets didn't make it and they were shot down, and it was 12 rocket salvos banging into the UFO, affecting the force field. And at some point in the proceedings, they must have kissed and made up, is my suspicion. At some point in the proceedings, some sort of treaty must have happened. I believe that there's a lot to be said for the guy Howard Hughes, and the aircraft carried an APG-40 radar. But I believe, my suspicion is that a police treaty of some type did occur that's now been breached. I think the government of the US has paid for it ever since. And I actually believe that Howard Hughes' company developed a radar system that could detect UFOs, and they kept that quiet as well. These UFOs with the Nimitz carrier group, these UFOs were coming up on infrared, they were coming up at various levels. I know that the Nordic craft are capable of actually cloaking themselves, so we're dealing with some very advanced technology. The reason why we made the assessment that there was a Cold War going on with the UFOs is because of what I was witnessing. So we're watching two types of ET group, of this one is Russia and one is NATO. And on a Skywatch, we filmed, Jason and I and a few others, on a Skywatch in Wales, and we're going to do a Skywatch tonight. I mean, it would be wonderful tonight, ladies and gentlemen, if we had a pink triangle coming in. It would just be wonderful. But we saw 20 different aircraft, 20 different UFOs coming in, coming out. And the thing is there was a particular type of UFO that was keeping its distance, keeping its height, very small dot of light, and would not reveal itself. Some of these UFOs have come in close to triangles of very bright balls of light, but these particular ones were not. They were keeping their distance, and they were watching us. And they were watching us because they were watching what we were watching. They were on Skywatch as well. They were wanting to see what we could see, because it basically means that extraterrestrial group B is watching for extraterrestrial group A coming in on its turf, as it were. And that appears to be what it is. It's an alien Cold War. There's two distinct camps. And just recently, we had the beautiful interaction with the emerald green lady alien. That's the lady, yes, she was emerald green, as I say, as we saw earlier. And just recently, she was transmitting across this network that I'm discussing about their art. They're actually, these ETs were actually demonstrating their art, their own drawings. And that's just an example, but if you can imagine it even more colourful than that, and the actual colour is actually flowing everywhere, it was incredible to behold and witness, and a privilege actually to be part of this. We're not sure in what point in Earth history that the aliens are communicating across this network, but I believe they're communicating to an agency very advanced technology across this communications network, as we can see. That's the emerald green UFO, that's it. So she's coming in low, she's coming to say hello. It was a beautiful sight. Slides in, slides off again. Very graceful. And she was just coming to check on me because I had been suffering exhaustion. And when we get into this a bit further, we understand that the other incident that I had involved the craft that's on my front cover. And you ask yourself, even though I'm sat here speaking about this, I ask myself, how can I keep pace? How have I done this? What the hell is going on? There might be more than one of us involved in all this. It might be some kind of giant operation where certain humans, a bit like Close Encounters, are selected for certain things. But it is true to say that there has been a couple of incidents where these craft have their own mind. These craft are artificially intelligent and are sometimes referred to by the Nordics as their beloved ship. There was an incident with me where, I won't go into too much, I'll spare you the details, but basically they were trying to interface me with the craft, and the craft was kind of like wanting to know about spirituality and the cosmos. because it was explaining that it was a machine, it couldn't understand spirituality like we could, and it thirsted for it. In fact, this craft, high-tech, high-spec, precision analysis tool was like a Dalek that couldn't get up the stairs, whereas we could probably sit here now and all meditate and get into the higher vibe and the higher power. That craft does not possess that ability, even though it's very advanced, and it wanted to know, it wanted to feel it, and that's what they did with me, and it was quite an amazing exercise. And interestingly enough, therefore, you now have two black operational projects going on, and one collides with the other. You've got the Americans with their used UFOR for daily business, and then you've got these guys turning up, the Galactic NATO, doing their own thing. It was an incredible experience with the craft, and I write about it in my book at length. Really, it was absolutely spectacular what happened to me, and I'm wondering whether they're constantly coming in, constantly monitoring things, and they are in conflict with what we would call another extraterrestrial group. So they are colliding with what's going on at the moment. It's at this point you've had a comprehensive afternoon of just showing you what it's like at the sharp end, and I hope that I've kind of like given it all an edge that you've not seen before with it all. So I just wanted to do this little meditation. It's all about understanding. I had an incident that I've not talked about tonight a few years back, where there was a clear indication. I'd come to Southport, I was being targeted again. It was quite unpleasant targeting, and then this UFO, like we see, came backwards and forwards over the house, and I wondered what it was doing. And then I kind of like went to bed and fell asleep, and I was shown this spectacular vision of a dimensional portal and the feeling of divinity and consciousness within it. We're being lied to, and it's as if on Earth currently at the moment it's being all dumbed down on purpose, and the reality around us, it was an incredible experience. And a few weeks later, just recently, I'd been constantly waking up going, where's my mother? I need to get her breakfast. Where's my mother? I need to get her out of bed. Oh my God, she's dead. On this one particular incident, I wake up again, where's my mother? Oh, she's not here. Oh, she's not. I'm just about to burst into tears, and then there was this sensational, beautiful, serene presence in the room. I would call it the divine, actually, and it was surreal. It was beautiful, and it was that very exercise. So we're just going to do a little exercise to lead us into that. But the thing is that this being that I had a confrontation with was looking for it. The AI craft was looking for it. They were seeking divinity, and yet we as human beings, we can close our eyes in meditation and we can feel divinity. Do you get me? We're privileged. So it's as if our ancestor and our heritage, from what the UFOs are saying, is higher up the dimensional chain to God himself. And that's a very privileged position to be in. So I just wanted to do a little meditation with you all. And it's very simple but yet powerful, and you might want to email me and tell me how you get on with it. I'm not sure I'm going to begin it, but let's start by relaxing, I think. Let's get relaxed. I think that's going to be the first thing. Take a few deep breaths. I'm not the world's best at leading into meditations, but we'll have a go. We're not in any hurry, are we now? Okay, so get some relaxation, okay. So this is what I want you to do. If you just start relaxing your feet. And start relaxing the calf muscles. Take some deep breaths. No quicker than you need to. Maybe the stomach muscles. Just relax. Start relaxing the hands. Going deeper into relaxation. And the shoulders. Relax the neck. Relax deeper. Just keep relaxing yourself. And I want you to imagine the reality we see around us, everything from where we're sat now to you as a human being, to the table in front of you, as being like an emission, as like on an oscilloscope, like a baseline, like a line of thought running across you of events, moments in history, things that have happened to you, like a trace on an oscilloscope, or like a line, I think is the word we're looking for, of history. And I want you to step back, literally as if you've stepped on a ladder. And that ladder, you climb it, and that ladder is Jacob's ladder. And you climb that ladder symbolically, as selected few people have done before. And you keep stepping back away from this baseline of incidents and events and history that is the human illusion. And you step into the divine will, the divine consciousness, the creator of worlds. And you ask it to give you good peace. Ask it to be as best as you can. You ask it to give you its intelligence in the way to do things. And you keep remembering, when you get bogged down in the negativity, in the driving engine of this world, to step back and step into the realm of consciousness that is supremely divine, that is serene, that is beautiful, and can be found as you climb Jacob's ladder. And when you get to the top of Jacob's ladder, you walk into the gateway, into the portal that demonstrates the serene beauty of the consciousness within the universe. God himself is present in you. Keep stepping back when the going gets tough. Step back from events. Literally step back and into the divine realm. I'll let you hold that for a couple of minutes. Imagine it in every pore of your being. The serenity, the serene beauty of it. Its divinity is present within you. It's the creator of worlds. You have accessed on Jacob's ladder many dimensions upwards. As far up as beyond 9 dimensions, you've accessed your mind into that area. Let it bring you peace. And let it bring you beauty and serenity. With that divine energy, that serene divine presence, that supreme intelligence, let it permeate into you, and no quicker than you need to. When I go back to 5, you're back in the room. 1, coming up. 2, back in the room. But don't apologise. Be indulgent. Let it come with you. Let it be in your mind as you come back in the room. Don't please do that. 3, slowly coming back with that feeling of divinity from the higher realms within you. 4, perhaps no quicker than you need to, coming back into this reality. And if you wish to chill out, it's fine. And if you don't, on 5, we're back in the room. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, back in the room. That was a very quick demonstration. It's very powerful. But when you get more time and you want to do that, I always find that you'll discover it to be very powerful. And this was something that was demonstrated to me by them, where you imagine this whole reality is like one great big oscilloscope timeline of peaks and troughs of events and so on, and you just literally step back from the line. And it's demonstrated in the symbology of Jacob's ladder, which is what the ET showed me, and it is no coincidence that UFO went into a square, indicating portal, indicating higher dimension, of which is our heritage. And it's a very powerful meditation, and you maybe want to, we might have a go at it tonight, I don't know, on the Skywatch, but it's a very powerful meditation to do. And so what that being was looking for when it was stood in my room going berserk was exactly that, what you just did there. Can you believe that? And what the craft was looking for was exactly what you just did there. Even though perhaps you may not have felt anything, in a bit of practice it comes, you'll begin to feel it. I felt it myself. and that's our gateway to divinity, and that appears to be, to me, what the UFOs were showing me: advanced communication, aerodynamics, and an advanced spirituality that is our right to be remembered by and our right to know. And it's coming up to 20 to 4, and that just about, I've got questions if you want to ask, but that really just concludes my lecture, and I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope I've shown you many things. You've taken in a lot of information, and it's been a privilege to speak to you all, and I thank you.
I've got a question. We came across somebody that did a talk on the Down Mountains and the Brecon Beacons, and it said that the farmers there, a lot of the animals were getting mutilated, and anyway they informed I don't know, agricultural fishery or whatever. They came and took the animals away, but some people actually, they didn't get them all, but they found that there was no, when people had checked it out and opened the animals up, there was no blood, and there was no any organs.
Yeah. I've just been reading of an increase in horse mutilations in France.
I've heard that.
At the moment. The thing is that these, where are we? There's a clear conflict. There is a clear conflict because some of these beings are advanced. They have judiciary, and this is the kicker. You couldn't invade. You just couldn't. These Nordics are out there. They're using our oceans, and there's a clear objection to what you've just said. There is objections among these beings here to this situation definitely going on at the moment, and it's causing quite a cold war among them, and it's quite serious and shocking as well. You know, it really is. Yeah.
Are you familiar with the human mutilations at near Senny Bridge?
Yes.
Richard B. Hawke?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. You see. Yeah, it's a very dangerous thing to talk of. The camera's rolling at the moment, and I just have to be careful what I say about that area of all this. But needless to say, we're not being invaded. They're here. We can learn from them. You know, we can certainly learn from the more peaceful ones. Definitely, yeah. Yeah.
Do you want to come across the term space fence?
Go on, run it past me. I may have done. Go on.
Basically, when Ronald Reagan started mentioning Star Wars,
yes,
couldn't do it because it didn't have a space fence.
Couldn't do it because it didn't have
it's to do with chemtrails and ionosphere, and the space fence is supposed to be prison planet where we are within this
dome.
Yeah, we're within the fence. It's our safety, our security. And the Star Wars now can operate, apparently.
Yeah, the American government get it so wrong with what's going on.
Yeah.
And I think it's just dawning on them that they can actually, for example, Colonel Philip Corso, when he was liaising, when he recovered from Roswell. Have you heard of the day after Roswell, anyone?
Yeah.
You've heard, anybody not heard of the day after Roswell? Just show me your answer so I can explain. Wonderful. Okay, Day After Roswell was a book written by Colonel Philip Corso about back-engineered UFO recovery. And what they said was that the technology from Roswell was integrated into plasma televisions, our laptops, all this kind of thing. And they said that it would be a nice future if they could handle it. So what it is at the moment, it's all about not so much a space fence, but it's all about acquiring technology that could revolutionise data transfer and so on. And what will happen in the years ahead is we will start as human beings communicating with them out there in the galactic community. But at the moment we've got some teething problems. But no, it isn't a space fence, but it is a control by a very dark force that must be respected of human affairs. It's definitely that. In fact, this symbol, when it happened to me, I'll just show you this as a matter of interest. Hang on. There we go. What can't be, I don't know if you can see it. That there was actually an angel, a giant angel, magnificent light transcending from it, indicating intervention, divine intervention in human affairs. It was symbolic. And what that meditation we did earlier at the close, even though we didn't feel it perhaps, we'll get there. It's that beauty, that baseline of beauty, serenity and divinity is very, very blocked and very dumbed down so that we don't notice it, but it's present. The moment in PR, for example, in the press, I was watching the other night, Dawn was showing me a pop concert with Madonna doing this song that was very dark, and obviously she hadn't a clue what she was really getting into when they were doing that, and it's kind of like lifting that fence lifting that fence. Not that the aliens have put a fence around us or anything like that. It's about lifting that fence so that mankind can evolve. That's the thing. Yeah? Yeah.
Were you aware that these beings actually do change the colour of their skin as they travel through space? They do go green.
Yes, they do. In fact, there's actually an Afro-Caribbean version of one of a Nordic. Absolutely stunning she was. And she was Afro in look, but they're many and varied. So that their theme to me was, we are many and we are varied and we are from Andromeda was the situation. And yes, I'm aware of that fully. Yeah, I am aware.
Yeah, because I used to be in an organisation that spoke to people who had problems, etc.
Yeah.
And there was one lady who used to come in, and she used to tell me about these green beings.
Yes.
Small green beings that visited her.
Yes.
And as it so happened, I was the only one who believed her.
Yes.
Nobody else did.
You mean her? And she was from Arcturus, and she visited me at 2 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon when I felt like putting myself in front of a train. I was exhausted. I lost everything, including my mother. I didn't know what to do. She came into my dream space, and there was no doubt about who she was. She was beautiful, with this serenity of energy around her, this beautiful vibe around her. And yeah, definitely that colour, yeah, emerald green. Oh yeah, quite an amazing moment it was as well. Really was. Unbelievable.
Do you think that the myths and fables we hear of mermaids could be ETs?
Yes, could be. I mean, I'm not... But you might know more about that than me. I know definitely that there are maritime aliens out there who are using our oceans, and the US Navy has not disclosed that yet. They might do. They might take a bold step in public and actually disclose that. But yeah, there is a possibility, isn't there, that mermaids are ETs? Absolutely, 100%.
Well, you get the ancient folk tales from like Seaman, you know.
You do.
In bygone years, you know.
Yes, you do. Japan's got a lot of them, haven't they? In fact, Japan have got the tales of people turning up from other worlds, being lost, carrying strange things and speaking a strange language. That's in Japanese folklore as well, isn't it? Like the man from Toro who turned up at a Japanese airport with his passport, all stamped different countries that did not exist, and he went bonkers saying, well, I come from this country, but it didn't exist. So they took him into a hotel room and he mysteriously vanished, so the story goes. I don't know, but there you go. Meant to be from a parallel universe. Yeah. Yeah.
Any more questions, folks? Before I ask
I did see the triangle, but that was 1961.
Yeah.
It was huge.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. You see,
for quite a long time.
that's it. You see, at the moment in the skies above us, the confusion, is it theirs or is it ours? And there's all this TR3B. It's a TR3B. Well, in fact, it might not be. It might be one of theirs. It might be a Nordic craft, and they're very advanced. You see, yeah, they are. They're very advanced. It's I've painted you a picture of a world with a direction with all this. I feel with the UFO stuff as to where it's going, but it has not been easy for me, and it's not been a path of peace either. But it just goes to show when I'm sat here talking to you how much I've evolved, you know. And you've just been a wonderful audience, and the event organisers have been lovely. And I just once again thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
I've just got a little birthday present from everybody.
Oh, lovely.
Little birthday present for you.
Oh, bless you, thank you.
Tony's 50.
50 on Wednesday. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Oh,
I'll never say 50 again.
thank you so much. Oh, that's so kind. Thank you.